My name is Justin Decloux, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And today, we're talking about one of Hollywood's two-fisted directors, Don Siegel.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Auteurism is a slippery slope. When those heroic French critics in the 1950s were making the case that Alfred Hitchcock, Howard Hawks were capital A artists, it seemed pretty radical at the time. It doesn't anymore. Well, the slippery slope led to recognizing the artistry and personal style of one Don Siegel.
Now, you make that sound a little bit negative in the framing that you just provided.
I don't mean to.
But I think Don Siegel is one of those names that I hear it and I think, great director. Like, it's automatic that he has Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Escape from Alcatraz, The Shootist, Rough Cut starring Burt Reynolds, one of his last films. Okay, maybe not that last one, but Dirty Harry. Like, come on, the original The Beguiled.
I mean, your parents have seen 80% of Don Siegel's filmography, and they have no idea it was all directed by the same man, but they love those movies.
Absolutely. And I think that Don Siegel is a guy that maybe I took for granted a little bit too much, that I'm like, oh, he's a great director. He's over there directing, and there's a whole filmography for me to get to. Now, the surprising thing for me this week is I discovered Don Siegel is a guy that likes to work. And that was the most surprising thing, because for the longest time, Don Siegel is a guy that taught Clint Eastwood how to direct. He is a guy that's out there. He was detached from the studio system after a run, and he was an independent guy. But then you look at his filmography, and it is mostly made up of things that is made by a guy who's very good, unshowy. And one of the reasons that you would never know that he made them is that they can often be pretty anonymous.
Well, in Hollywood, he was a respected craftsman. He was somebody who was admired by his peers, but not really put on any kind of pedestal. Although he did get a Directors Guild nomination for Riot on Cell Block 11.
Should have won. That movie is amazing.
Oh, yeah. As is so often the case, we have the French to thank for recognizing Don Siegel. In fact, one of the characters in Jean-Luc Godard's Made in USA, I think at one point says, like, I went to see the new Siegel or something. Siegel was apparently aware of his cult following among French intellectuals, but he didn't take it too seriously. You know, he was a craftsman. He did his job. I do think, like, I love Don Siegel. And as I was looking at his filmography, I'm curious what you think, because I would say he's got like 10 bangers easily.
Yeah, but he directed like 60 movies.
You know, sure, but that's the case with a lot of guys. You take the top portion of that filmography, and it's one awesome movie after another.
What's surprising about his filmography is that, like, if you put them in order of popularity, like, it drops off pretty fast. So, like, if you look at Letterboxd, you got 8 bangers right from beginning to end, and after Riot on Block Cell 11, you got The Big Steal. Okay. Flaming Star, the all-right Elvis film. Madigan, not good. Hell's for Heroes, really good. Telephone, The Verdict, and then Miscellaneous. But you got...
I love Telephone.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, it's good. Babyface Nelson is fun. I don't know. I like this filmography.
It's got a lot of what I would say kind of programmer movies. Especially the one. So Will watched only bangers this week. I put myself through the ringer and I watched about 7 movies, and it was all the ones that weren't classics except for The Shootist, because like I had seen all of Don Siegel's like great films already.
We'll get to those, but a little bit about Don Siegel's style, because for all these Don Siegel movies I've seen over the years, and like you, I regarded him the same way. I would unflinchingly say Don Siegel, great director.
I don't think I would deny that still to this day.
But I never like stopped to think, what is his style, you know?
Charlie Varick, though. Oh, what a movie. One of the best.
Oh my God. I love, we went to see Charlie Varick earlier this year or last year. We went to see it at the Review Cinema. And I remember on the way out, you said, what a movie. You're looking at Walter Matthau. And when you're not looking at Walter Matthau, you're looking at John Vernon. And when you're not looking at John Vernon, you're looking at Joe Don Baker. And like, I couldn't put it better myself. Yeah, I mean, as you say, his style is not ostentatious. He's not sentimental. He's very straight ahead, but his style is sensible. You know what I mean?
But I wouldn't even call it like a punchy style. Or, he's often categorized, like I did at the beginning of this episode, as a two-fisted director. While there is a grit, it is not an overpowering one of something I would associate with, like, the hardest edge Robert Aldrich, or, of course, the god, Sam Fuller, where like those Sam Fuller films, they all pack a punch. That's not the case with all of Don Siegel's filmography.
I agree. There's something much more, I think, objective about Don Siegel's filmography. Like, his compositions are never fancy. He never calls attention to himself as a stylist. But nevertheless, like, the movies are not static. They have a lot of energy, and you know, he is very good at directing action scenes, not just like stunts and choreography, but nuts and bolts, like shooting and editing stuff. You watched the lineup this week, and the final chase scene in the lineup is awesome. Or the phone booth chase in Dirty Harry is also awesome.
Yeah, I think that like Don Siegel, when he can pop off in those movies, it's great. But sometimes the totality of them, like the lineup is basically an episode of a 50s TV series blown up to the big screen, because it's literally based on a TV series with these moments of vicious violence in it that is so shocking that I think it tends to dominate any banality around it.
You know, Manny Farber in 1969, Manny Farber likes Don Siegel, but he wrote that he's been wrongly deified by auteurists. He's interesting only if he's left life-sized and unhaloed. And like, he said that admiringly. He said that like it's possible to blow him up a little too much, and he works best if he's like approached as the humble craftsman that he was. And I think there's something interesting. Like there's a point to that I maybe agree with.
Have you ever checked out his biography, a Don Siegel film?
I'm ashamed to say I have not.
It rules. It is so long. It's like a giant brick, and he goes through, I think, every one of his movies, but he writes it all like screenplays, conversations between everyone, which you're like, okay, well, so you're just making this up as you're going along, and it rocks. Joe Dante said like he thought the book revealed very little about Don Siegel, and that it felt more like kind of like almost like a pulp like pot boiler, in the way that it's like he's fighting with his producers and stuff like that, trying to get things through, and it's all through whatever his perspective of events were. But it's an autobiography. That's what it's going to be. And I think for that, it's very interesting. Surprisingly, something like Riot in Cell Block 11, he has very little to say about it in the book. That he's just kind of like, as an independent producer, he would often be approached by other producers to be like, hey, do you want to make this movie? We got a script. And he'd look at it and go, okay, I want to do some rewrites. I want this or that. But he was never a guy who's like, I have this project and I want to get it made. He's just like, let me come on, let me do the job, and I'm going to do that job well.
Nevertheless, I think there were kinds of stories, kinds of characters that he gravitated to. I mean, Andrew Sarris in the American cinema identified the doomed peculiarity of the antisocial outcast in his films, which that sounds a little highfalutin, but he does seem to gravitate towards those like outcast, lone male characters, whether it's in Charlie Varick, The Shootist, Coogan's Bluff, Dirty Harry, even Riot and Cell Block 11. Certainly Hell is for Heroes, the Steve McQueen character in that film.
Yeah, but then if you look at his filmography, you're like The Spanish Affair, An Annapolis Story, No Time for Flowers, Hound Dog Man.
Yeah.
You can cherry pick when you're a studio director like that and you've made so many films. I think that's definitely his preference. That's what he would rather be doing, because he's like a two-fisted guy. He wants to make these kind of like pulp films, has an understanding of them. But like in some of the films that I watched this week, I just feel like they got away from him for whatever reason. And I think one of the building blocks for that is that Don Siegel was a guy that worked his way up in the studio system. Like when we saw Casablanca, we popped when we saw like montages by Don Siegel.
Yes, that's right.
Like he's one of the guys kind of like Edward L. Kahn, who like edited. So he has such a firm understanding of how movies are meant to be put together that I think that sometimes the construction of them is sound with a little bit of a like fiery passion missing. Not always. And when it pops, it pops. For example, like in Riot in Cell Block 11 from 1954. This movie rules. And it's so funny when you keep it in conversation with, the guy who directed Dirty Harry, because it's almost like the opposite of that viewpoint.
Well, and yeah, in real life, apparently Don Siegel was a liberal, which, is ironic considering he's now most famous for making the Law and Order authoritarian classic film of all time. But Riot in Cell Block 11 is a socially conscious film about the need for prison reform, but mostly it's a two-fisted action movie.
It was put into production by Walter Wanger, who had gone to jail for shooting who he believed believed to be his wife's lover at the time and was so disgusted by how prisoners were treated, he wanted to make a movie about it. And what's fascinating about Riot in Cell Block 11 is that knowing they're coming from that perspective, it makes such the smart move not to wallow in it before getting to the riot. Like the riot starts, you see it, so you're wrapped up in it. And then as it goes on, it's kind of discussed and revealed how horrible it is being a prisoner, which is never how anyone would make a movie now today.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but Riot in Cell Block 11 is the one that I think of when I think of Don Siegel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even more than Dirty Harry. It's like it forcefully kind of coalesces all of his best qualities. It's short, it's exciting, not an ounce of fat. It's socially conscious, and it has that sort of plain, objective style to it.
But it's also just a little bit showy at times, like the way that it captures crowds and the mass of humanity without ever dehumanizing any of the characters, who a lot of them, the film makes no bones about, are like bad guys. But you do not want them to be treated the way the prison system is treating them.
So the first 10 minutes of the movie are spent on a basic survey of this prison. I mean, it was shot at Folsom Prison, and there are many real inmates and real guards in the film. But the first 10 minutes are, you're in this miserable environment. The inmates have no rights. Like, there's one inmate who's begging anyone who will listen to find out if his daughter is okay. And there's also this kind of liberal warden who's been advocating for better conditions.
Fake,
but
false, doesn't exist. Get out of here.
Nevertheless, in the first 10 minutes, that's all you need to know. And at like minute 10, the riot breaks out. And it goes from there. That's actually the efficiency of the beginning of this movie. That's all you need to know about this place.
I love how there's not even like a good cop in this movie, that they're all like just bastards, all of them.
But because they're all bastards, it's also like a movie with no villains too,
Yeah, like they're bastards. They're perpetrating the system. But even like the murderers and stuff like that, you're like, yeah, they shouldn't be treated like this. Don't you love Leo Gordon in this film? Roger Corman legend, having written and acted in so many Corman films back in the day. Writer of The Terror, The Wasp Woman, Attack of the Giant Leeches.
Real life, he was convicted of armed robbery.
And it was a big issue where the warden was like, hey, we don't want to let Leo Gordon in here because he is a convicted felon. And supposedly Sam Peckinpah helped, who in the film, as Don Siegel explains, was his gopher on the picture. And the warden basically only allowed them to shoot because Sam Peckinpah is from very, very rich family, and the warden recognized who he was. He's like, oh, Peckinpah? Of the Peckinpah Mountains? Oh, yeah, you can shoot here, no problem.
But, as the film goes on, the tension increases. There are growing factions within the prison. The warden is kind of stuck between the prisoners, who he has some sympathy with, and the politicians, who want the rebellion suppressed. It all leads up to this ending that I won't spoil.
Well, I want to spoil it because I want to talk about it.
All right, let's go.
Because I feel like if people know this ending, they may even want to get into it more, because it ends the way you would think a studio Hollywood picture would end, where it's like, hey, we convinced them, the governor signed the paper, and like the reforms they want is just like no leg shackles. You got to redo the block because it's literally crumbling. The cells need to be a little bit bigger. And it ends with them signing, boo, yay, riot's off. And then afterwards, ringleader is brought into the warden's office, and the warden's like, yeah, we're not doing any of that. Like, the governor just said that we don't have to follow those rules. And he's like, what? He's like, also, you're getting 30 more years added to your sentence. And it's like, oh my God. It's so funny that the guy who, the director, Don Siegel, who the right-wing movie Dirty Harry, and, many people perceive anti-communist Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and you could not have a more like, the people need to come up, they need to like work as one. They even say in the movie that's like, you need to be part of a collective, not as an individual, to get this stuff done. And at the end, the movie's like, yeah, but you don't get it because, we won't follow your rules. Really, violence would have been the answer in this situation.
Now, Hell is for Heroes from 1955, the next year. This is a World War II thriller. It's set in France in 1944. It's about a squad of soldiers that's waiting to be sent home, who unexpectedly are called back to the front lines because they have to hold the line of defense for 48 hours until more troops arrive. And it's a half dozen guys, and they have to create the illusion that there's like 10 times that amount. So a lot of subterfuge, a lot of shenanigans.
This movie took me by surprise because for the first half, I'm like, here we go, kind of lackadaisical Don Siegel. It's basically a farce where they're like trying to make people believe, like Bob Newhart is there doing a shtick on the phone.
He does the phone thing, yeah.
Which he was famous for. And there's almost no tension to what's going on. There's a little bit.
The movie has more hangout movie vibes.
Yes, in that first half.
And the cast includes Bobby Darin, Kevin Spacey's favorite.
Somewhere beyond the sea.
But overwhelmingly, the star of the movie is Steve McQueen as this soldier who, he's been thrown in at the last minute. He's come here and, the sergeant knows him, respects him as a soldier, but knows he's trouble, doesn't want him around. And Steve McQueen, I think, peak McQueen charisma here, like really dialed back, just a presence.
Hollowed-eyed the entire time. So the trick that this movie plays is that the second half is so brutal that like everyone dies in horrifying. That guy screaming like, my God, because that's the trick, right? Is that if you spend these kind of like banal, almost like hangout vibe for 50 to an hour, and then the like real war. Oh, and then everybody dies. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's not even any real victory at the end of the movie because there is no way to win in this situation. This is like Don Siegel. This is what you remember about him when you watch his top films like this. It's like, oh, there you go. It's like that punch in the gut. But that first half, I'm like, oh, yeah, the Siegels people don't talk about kind of have that vibe too as well. But he is such a good guy with actors that like he very specifically wants actors. In his autobiography talks about it a lot. Like, I want this person, I want that person. And he is so perfect when it comes to that. Like, as you talked about, Health for Heroes is so well cast.
The movie does have a kind of like an intimacy to it. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, it feels cheap, like in a good way,
Like, it feels like a programmer, if you will. So that when it like hits you in the gut in the end, I mean, the title is almost like, slow, like this is going to be a pleasant time near the end. It's that much more powerful for it. Because if it kept that intensity the entire time, when people start dying, like it wouldn't feel as powerful as it does.
I just want to go back and say a little bit more about how Don Siegel got into the industry. He was born in Chicago in 1912. His parents were both musicians. His father played the mandolin. His mother ran a music school. His parents wanted him to become a musician. And in fact, he studied music at Cambridge, didn't work out, studied acting at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, dropped out. Eventually, he found his way to Hollywood, where an uncle got him a job working at the Warner Brothers library. And his first job was basically creating montages for B movies out of stock footage.
Which after that, he hated doing. If you look at his films, they almost have no montages in them because he's like, I don't want to do that.
But as you said, eventually he worked his way up. He did the opening few minutes of Casablanca. He worked on Sergeant York, To Have and Have Not, as an assistant director, so apprenticing under Howard Hawks. Finally, in 1945, he got the chance to direct two short films, a documentary called Hitler Lives and a drama called Star in the Night, and they both won Oscars. Both of them.
Wild.
In the same year. And so that was his ticket to directing his first feature, a B movie called The Verdict with Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet. I'm actually not sure if I've ever seen this one. Did you watch that one this week?
No, I didn't. It seems like most people are like, it's a pretty solid programmer.
Right.
Which is funny because you would expect that like after he wins 2 Oscars in the same year, he would have the pick of whatever he wanted.
And so for the next 25 years, he's working for many studios, making mostly B movies or B plus movies, working in lower budgets, works in all kinds of genres.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we need an Audie Murphy Western. And then he's like, let's get Don Siegel. So he does like The Duel at Silver Creek, which is like, I'm looking at my review and I'm like, it's fine. Like nothing particularly noteworthy. He shows up, he does the job.
And in the 1960s, he's developing this kind of minor auteurist reputation. I dug up this monograph that I have, Don Siegel, American Cinema by Alan Lovell, which was written for the BFI. This is an updated version. The first version was written in 1968. In Andrew Sarris's The American Cinema, the filmography goes up to Madigan. And so all these people, all these French critics, all these auteurists, they didn't even know that he was going to become Clint Eastwood's main director for the next 10 years.
Well, I think that even if you're writing it that early, you can lock into Riot in Cell Block 11, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you got enough
Absolutely.
there. Like, everything can build off of that. Because Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which we're not talking about this episode, there's a reason that everybody remembers it.
Clint Eastwood, the first movie they made together is Coogan's Bluff, which I saw years ago. That's the one where he's like an Arizona sheriff who goes to New York and has to fight his way through the hippie dippies and the counterculture and all that. It's pretty fun, you know. I was reading in Sean Levy's book about Clint Eastwood this week. When they were first paired, Clint Eastwood was a new star and he didn't like taking orders. And there was a bit of a like turf war on the first movie between him and Don Siegel. You know, quickly Clint Eastwood, over beers, the two of them bonded. And Clint Eastwood really admired the sort of disciplined, authoritative, no-nonsense side of Don Siegel. Like, you know, years later, he dedicated Unforgiven to Sergio and Don. And you can almost see, like, both those influences as being two spheres of Clint Eastwood's talent. You can imagine that Eastwood learned a lot of the nuts and bolts of actually running a set, you know, actually creating a movie with your hands from Don Siegel.
But looking at Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood's collaborations, there's always way less than I thought that there was. Like, you got Escape from Alcatraz, Dirty Harry, Coogan's Bluff, like you said, The Beguiled, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. That's it. Like, you'd think there'd be way more than that. But I didn't, like, Clint or Don say that, like, Don was around a lot when Clint started directing and was kind of a mentor figure / ghost director, if you will.
By the way, so much of what we've been saying about Don Siegel's kind of plain-spoken style, The Beguiled is the exception to that.
Oh, well, that's like the gothic, like, over-wrenched, like, you wouldn't even know it was Don Siegel if you watched it.
Very subjective, very surreal, lots of, like, heavy symbolism and weird stuff going on. I mean, it's an outlier in both their filmographies. There's that classic quote, you know, I think it was a Playboy interview where Clint Eastwood was being asked, you know, why didn't The Beguiled work at the box office? And Clint Eastwood was like, I don't have the quote in front of me, but he was like, you know, there are some actors like Dustin Hoffman or whoever who can play losers. My audience doesn't want me to play a loser. They want me to play a winner. And you know what? I don't understand losers. He said that.
You know what? He's speaking from the heart. What can you say?
I mean, what can I say? The man later made the 1517 to Paris and Richard Jewell. You know, he came to understand losers, I think. But at that time, he didn't. I love The Beguiled, though. You like The Beguiled, right?
I love The Beguiled, yeah. It rules. So we also watched The Shootist from 1976, which in his autobiography, he starts the first chapter is him making The Shootist. Like, you can get the sense, like, this is the one that really mattered to him, mostly because it was, like, John Wayne's, like, last big role. I think it may have even been his last role, right?
It was his last role, and it certainly feels like it was conceived as his last movie.
I mean, I'm sure John Wayne did not see it that way. I believe he was suffering from cancer at the time, though.
Well, as he said at the Oscars a couple years later, Oscar and I came into town in 1928. We're both a little weather-beaten, but we plan to be here for a long time. And he wasn't there for a long time after that, but it was very powerful when he said that.
Oh my God, Will, have you seen this John Wayne Playboy interview? Listen to the stuff that he said.
I don't even want to think about that right now.
Every year it comes up, and it's like, okay, we know he was an awful man.
It's too bad, because I'm watching The Shootist, and it's like, I love this man. I love him.
The Shootist is so good, and it really works because you know who John Wayne is as a screen persona.
Well, it opens with a montage of movie scenes featuring the young John Wayne, you know, allegedly telling the story, you know, in a quick montage of this much feared Western gunslinger from the 1860s up to the turn of the 20th century. And, you know, he was once a lawman. Eventually he became known as an assassin, a man who killed damn near everything that walked or crawled. But now it's 1901, which is significant because it's the 20th century. You know, this is a man of the 19th century, and he's dying of cancer. So he pulls up into town. He goes to the widow, Lauren Bacall's boarding house.
I know that they make Lauren Bacall look old in this movie, but this is 1976. She lived to 2014.
I know. She must have been like 37 or something.
Yeah. And they made her look like all haggard in this film. It's like, we need to believe that John Wayne and her could not have any romance on screen, but like the simmering, the tension of a romance.
Word gets around that John Wayne, this feared shootist, the character has a name, but I'm just going to call him John Wayne.
J.B. Books. So he's basically just John Wayne.
Word gets around that he's dying, and then the vultures start circling. First of all, Lots of people are perfectly fine with him dying. Lots of people are like, maybe we can cash in. Maybe we can write a book about your exploits. Oh, maybe I can marry you and then write my own book.
I love the mayor like breaking into laughter where he's like, "You're dying? Woo! Don't got to worry about you then."
There's one character who unambiguously loves and respects John Wayne, and that's Ron Howard playing the widow's son, who has heard of the gunslinger's exploits and thinks it's so cool that he's killed all those people and wants to follow in his footsteps. And I think something that's interesting about this movie is, it's one of those movies. It's one of those Death of the West movies. It's got a bit of a melancholy tone, but I don't think it's really a revisionist Western per se.
No, because it romanticizes the Western within the context of the film. Like, it loves the Western. Unforgiven is a revisionist Western where it's like, this is miserable. Like, there's no joy here. There's joy in the final gunfight that happens in this movie.
And I think also, crucially, unlike Unforgiven, which is definitely, the movie you think about when you watch this, I don't think the John Wayne character is repentant, really.
No, not at all.
He justifies everything he's done. And I think it's to Don Siegel and everyone else's credit that the movie leaves a lot of room for interpretation here. It leaves a lot of room for you to say, okay, but everyone in town hates you and is glad to see you die. Like, it's bad that the Ron Howard character wants to follow in your footsteps. But, this man is entirely true to his code of honor.
And I think there is, though, a tension in between Don Siegel and John Wayne, because in Siegel's autobiography, he talks about that, like, Wayne did not want him to look weak in this film, but he is allowed to look weak, like just weak enough to humanize him, but without completely demonizing him or, letting people know it's fake what he does or it's miserable. It somehow toes that line as like, Westerns are fun, but don't become like John Wayne, because that would be bad.
There's also something about the style of this movie where, it is a Don Siegel movie where, like, Unforgiven is very heavy. Visually, everything about it has this momentousness to it. But this movie doesn't. Like, it has a melancholy air to it, but like there is a bit of a lightness to it. One of Don Siegel's qualities that we didn't even mention is that he incorporates comedy in his movies very skillfully.
Well, I think that what helps that mood is the fact that this is a parade of faces you recognize from other Westerns. So you got like James Stewart, Richard Boone, Harry Morgan, Scatman Crothers. I popped when suddenly out of nowhere, I had not looked at the cast list, John Carradine shows up for a sequence as, of course, the mortician of the town. So I think that kind of like love and appreciation of times gone by can still work within like, oh yeah, but he's dying and it's the end. Because that's what the movie's about at the end of the day, right? Is not someone regretting the life that he's lived, but coming to terms that he's about to die and what that means. So The Shootist, me and Will are going on record to say, shockingly, great movie. So listening to this episode, you may be like, Justin, what? All you've talked about is how amazing Don Siegel is. Like when you started this conversation with, oh, maybe he's not all that he's caught up to. And again, I think it just comes down to Don Siegel, when he hit so hard and in such a way that is like, you can understand who he is as a director. But then, Will, you've seen his remake of The Killers. It ain't that hot.
It's okay.
It feels like a TV movie. And I think that is Don Siegel as a guy that worked as much as he did. Like, there's going to be a lot of that in his filmography. And at the end of the day, we don't need to talk about Madigan, which I also watch and sucks.
Really? It sucks?
Just boring people in boring rooms right up against walls. It's not very good. But you got Dirty Harry, Charlie Varick, The Shootist, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, Hell's for Heroes. Most filmmakers would kill for that filmography. So, Don Siegel has got it.
I actually think Charlie Varick might be one of my favorite movies. I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm just saying that to kind of twirl it around and see if I like the sound of it. So, Justin, do we have any letters this week?
We do have letters. As per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And our first letters is from John. And he goes, hey, fellas, but Justin in particular. Wanted to pass along my experience watching old movies with young kids. Oh, love letters like this. I've got 2 boys, age 5 and 2, and for my oldest, a good friend who also has young kids recommended Charlie Chaplin's The Kid. We waited until my oldest was about 3 and showed it to him. He loved it. We narrated the intertitles like a book, and he was able to follow the emotional story even if the specifics were lost on him. Since then, we watched The Circus, The Gold Rush, City Lights, and his current favorite, Modern Times. Whoa. What about, that Marlon Brando one?
Yeah, what about Monsieur Verdoux? It's time to get the kid trained in the facts of life.
The letter continues. We point out things like the gunplay and smoking being bad in real life. Smoking's pretty cool, kid. But we don't mention other things like the rich man in City Lights wanting to commit suicide over and over again. Eep! Overall, we found that these films are really delightful for both kids, and we've recently been watching Buster Keaton's 1 Week, which also has been a slam dunk. Now, our oldest is able to delightfully discern that certain films are in color and certain are in black and white. Imagine our surprise when we watched Paddington 2 recently, and there was a reference to Charlie Chaplin in Modern Times going through the gears of the machine, and our son recognized it. What a joy. You'll find your own path through older films, of course, but I wanted to tell you from personal experience that if you show them older stuff, they will like it and it will have meaning for them. And you'll be helping them vastly improve their media literacy, which is more and more essential to have these days. Thanks so much for the wonderful show, John in Chicago.
Well, this is beautiful. And hey, can I make a recommendation? How about some Laurel and Hardy? Watch Liberty, watch, the one where they go up the stairs, The Music Box.
Now, at what age, and this is a serious question, do you show a child Three Stooges?
I mean, for me, it was like 4
or 5
so
for me too.
I don't know. I mean, you gotta tell them not to do the eye poke at home.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to see the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
I want to say that I recently met a pal of mine at a screening Connell, and he mentioned that his kid has been obsessed and will not stop watching earnest commercial compilations.
Oh, God. Imagine.
I went, wait, how did he see that? And Connell was like, how do you think he saw it? I was watching it, and he walked into the room and was like, what's that? So that just goes to show Ernest still hits. Like, he'd still work for kids.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I was wondering how one would explain Ernest to a child, but I guess he has his own built-in explanation.
Well, I think that it's the commercials that he watch. So it's just like, hey, Vern. So it's like a character talking directly to the camera. So a connection is made instantly. Like the stuff that my kid watches now is like Miss Rachel. It's like them talking right to the screen. I mean, Connell's kid is 8, I think, so he is older, but it's just physical comedy. It's like him getting his hands stuck in like a window shutting down. He's like, oh! I think that there's something very easy to connect with there, and that makes sense. My son, his new obsession is like low sound, like moo, make him laugh so hard that we have like a thing that makes animal noises, and he just hits the lowest quack, like quack, quack, and he's just like, so it's like built into kids right from the get-go, like that, fart sounds, that's what makes kids laugh. So our next letter is from Jeremy, and he asks, what movies by some of your favorite filmmakers would you consider fascinating outliers? By outliers, I mean films that go against the grain from what the directors are primarily known for as auteurs or reputations in general. I mean, The Beguiled by Don Siegel, number 1.
Yep, that's an easy one right there.
And he just asked, can you think of any movies like that? And do you tend to value these outliers more or less than others in their filmography?
Well, I'm being lazy and just saying another movie that came up like 2 minutes ago, but Monsieur Verdoux by Charlie Chaplin is one like that because he kind of, he inverts the tramp persona and makes him evil. So that's definitely one. That's probably my favorite Chaplin movie, honestly, at this point.
Like, do we give those films more value because the filmmaker is trying to do something different? I mean, Kevin Smith's Red State.
Yeah.
But it's bad. Yeah. But he is trying to do something drastically different from what he is known for.
I do think these movies, like if you're approaching a director as or a director's work as a long conversation with the audience, those movies can be interesting they're interesting in the context of their career. They're interesting as a counterpoint.
What would you consider the Woodman's most outlier film? It's like Interiors would be the first one where he's like, I'm making a serious one.
Yeah, I suppose so, except that the themes in Interiors, Woody Allen has worked in so many different styles, so many different genres. Zelig is a very different style. Everything You Always Want to Know About Sex is a very different style. But at the end of the day, they're all Woody Allen movies, Oh, The Day the Clown Cried by Jerry Lewis.
Well, you haven't seen it. Maybe it's right in conversation with all his other films.
Maybe.
The letter writer actually made a list. So this was the trick. He wanted me to look at this list. And he has a lot of good ones. 1941 by Spielberg. Brewster's Millions, Walter Hill. Countess from Hong Kong, Chaplin, John Carpenter's Elvis, Fast Company, David Cronenberg, Dario Argento's The 5 Days. Would you consider Jersey Boys an outlier in Clint Eastwood's filmography?
Well, it certainly looks like all of his other movies. I don't really think so, because I actually think he has a bit of the Woody Allen syndrome. Actually, he's very different from Woody Allen because he has more of a journeyman quality than Woody Allen does. But at the end of the day, all the Clint Eastwood movies feel like Clint Eastwood movies to me. And it's funny, some of those movies you cited, I've actually never seen Fast Company. I'm ashamed to say I've never seen John Carpenter's Elvis, because those aren't the ones I reach for when I want to watch a John Carpenter movie.
Now, this list does have films like Office, a Johnny To film. I think that is in conversation with every other film Johnny To has made. It's not that out there. And Shattered Image, the Raul Ruiz film, which I think is very much a Raul Ruiz film that just happens to have the novelty of being in English.
Yeah.
So that's more of the ways that they are perceived. Even, David Lynch's The Straight Story. Would you consider that an outlier in Lynch's filmography?
Yes, I would, even though I see him in it.
But if you saw it, would you know it was David Lynch? That's an interesting question.
Not necessarily. I'm not sure I would, but if it were pointed out to me, I would see it.
Oh, and here's an outlier in Peter Bogdanovich's filmography, Targets, because it's really good compared to most of the movies he made.
Ouch.
Oh, yeah, The Last Picture Show and miscellaneous. Don't write me any emails about how Peter Bogdanovich, that Paper Moon is good. Please.
The St. Jack fans are going to come after you. That movie has its fans.
Oh, yeah. St. Jack is good, too. Paper Moon, What's Up, Doc? I'm just going to read all his films now. They're all great. And
Illegally Yours, masterpiece.
The Cat's Meow, A Saintly Switch. Wait, who stars in A Saintly Switch? Vivian Fox, David Alan Grier. We got to do bad Peter Bogdanovich now and see if we can see him in it.
I would love that. One of my favorite subgenres of this kind of thing is when a pornographer or a softcore filmmaker makes their one and only legit movie. What's that one that Gerard Damiano made? Legacy of Satan. Or when Radley Metzger made
The Cat and the Canary.
There are a bunch of movies like that.
Could also make for interesting episodes with certain filmmakers. God, Peter Bogdanovich's late period filmography is films that were doomed to be in bargain bins everywhere, like Hustle from 2004, the Pete Rose story. That cover is frozen in my mind because I would see it all the time in bargain bins.
Well, we should do an episode on Peter Bogdanovich's TV movies.
Was To Sir With Love 2 a TV movie or was it a theatrical film?
That was a TV movie. I mean, at least he got to work with Sidney Poitier on that one.
Oh, man. Or The Mystery of Natalie Wood. Cool.
I've seen that one.
And I'm sure it's great, right?
Here's what I'll say about The Mystery of Natalie Wood. It feels like it was made by the guy who made The Cat's Meow.
So solid 3-star.
Yeah, 2.5 maybe. Actually, The Mystery of Natalie Wood, you'll have to look up this movie because the guy who plays Christopher Walken in it is hilarious. So many people can do a Christopher Walken impression, not this guy. It's the worst I've ever seen. And he's playing him in the movie.
His name is Malcolm Kennard. And he's an Australian-born actor who was in Matrix Reloaded as Abel.
There you go.
So there you go. So thank you very much for that letter. And as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. This week on our Patreon, we're talking about the Oscars. How did our Oscar pools play out? What were the big travesties of the Oscars? What are our general opinion of the Oscars? Well, you can hear it all on our Patreon episode. And remember, if you subscribe to our Patreon, you will not get those previews in the feed because you get the main episodes in the Patreon feed as well. Also, we talk about The Phantom for most of the episode, the Billy Zane film.
That's right.
So check that out at patreon.com/theimportantcinemaclub. Next week, I feel like one small step for man because we're going to be talking about a subject that, to my knowledge, no one has really talked about because most of these films are not on Letterboxd. I feel like they'll be up by the time the episode comes out because someone listening to this is going to go and find them all because they are out there. And thanks to, I don't know if he wants me to say his name, but out of the blue, someone messaged me and said, hey, you know the director of Black Mamba, Belinda M. Wilson? She has multiple feature films. I have found them, and here's how you can watch them. So, Black Mamba, how would you describe that film, Will?
Black Mamba, which was recently released by Bleeding Skull on Blu-ray. It was, released through a Vinegar Syndrome partner label. Black Mamba is a shot-on-video movie from 2016. Okay, it's about a sorceress, like a voodoo witch who uses her powers to, like, people come up to her and they say, Black Mamba, like, help me conceive a child. And she's like, okay, I'll help you. Like, it's a monkey's paw wish, and it ruins their lives. Okay, that's the basic plot.
Yeah, I've seen that. What's so special about this?
It's one of the craziest movies of all time. It was made by an insane person.
You have never seen a movie like this.
I don't know how to articulate it. Imagine the visual style of Decker versus Dracula, unironically.
It's a movie that you watch, and you're like, I don't know how this was made.
Now it's time for
How did this get made? Like, when within the first 5 minutes, when the man is sent to hell and is chased by a giant naked demon with a huge dog.
Director Belinda M. Wilson seems to be the real deal.
If this is a like long con, I mean, bravo, because we'll be talking about Black Mamba. We'll be talking about, so I don't think we're going to watch all of the films that I got access to. Girls, 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 Secret Beach Party, The Peacemakers, which is 2.5 hours long, Woman Playground, and Escape. We'll be talking about most of them, I feel.
Yeah, this is our ticket to become the most popular film podcast out there. We're talking about Belinda M. Wilson, somebody whose most famous movie, Black Mamba, has 248 logs on Letterboxd, and the rest of her filmography barely exists. But you're going to be happy to hear about this person.
If you want to check out the movies that Belinda directed, it's on that Bleeding Skull triple feature.
Backyard Bloodbath.
The person who sent me this says that she's selling some of them on her Vimeo page, and we're going to be talking about them next week. So until then, my name's Justin Decloux.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. Thank you very much to all our new Patreon subscribers, who include Jake Long, Dylan Waite, Cameron Morfitt, Press Plastic, Jay, John Paul, Dylan Moss, Max W., Natasha Henriksen, Chris Berea, Charlie Coffey, Sullivan, Ed Sr., Jay again, Wah Wah, Big Man, Doc Bones, Moore, Dylan Birch. Thank you very much for becoming patrons. We could not keep doing this without you.
You know, Justin, I've been contemplating a phenomenon. I'd like to, program a film festival around this. A movie star whose popularity is falling, and this movie was their last wide release before they went direct to video.
Oh, okay. So what prompted this? Like, what was the thought or the star that's like, oh, I should put this out in the world?
Actually, I think I was thinking about Sylvester Stallone, because he's never far from my thoughts, Sylvester Stallone.
But his last one would not be that interesting because it's a Rambo film.
Okay, but this is the thing. I'm talking about a very particular time. Some of these stars came back, but for Stallone, it was Driven.
Yes. Was it Driven? ICU, a.k.a. Whatever it was called.
Detox.
That one direct to video, right?
Avenging Angelo. Yeah. Driven, I feel like that was his last. Actually, I think that was also like probably Burt Reynolds' last one.
So what you're talking about is more of a vibe thing than it is like literally the last theatrical film.
Exactly, because I think Steven Seagal has two. He has Fire Down Below, which was like, he went direct to video for a bit after that. He made an Albert Pune film. He made The Foreigner. Not The Foreigner. What the hell was that one called? And then he came back.
Sylvester Stallone has Rocky Balboa.
Right.
But he's already past that threshold in your opinion, though. Like, that's it.
Like, people can have comebacks, but there's an uninterrupted streak of stardom that comes to a close with this movie, which is like the culmination of a downward spiral. Here's another one along those lines. Pixels with Adam Sandler. Okay? That was the last theatrical release before the Netflix era. Now, Adam Sandler was obviously smart. He knew which way the winds were blowing. He had a string of flops leading up to Pixels, and then smoothly went, straight into the algorithm and is now more beloved than ever. Which Way to the Front with Jerry Lewis.
But he never went direct to video, though.
Well, Cracking Up went direct to video. Again, I'm talking more about vibe than anything.
Yeah, the idea. So how about someone like Robert De Niro? So I'm looking here, like Righteous Kill?
Maybe.
Because following that, you got Everybody's Fine, Little Fockers, but I'm saying once you dip your toe into DTV, you can never get out. Like, if you come back, that's fine. Okay, so it wouldn't be, because I saw a movie called Stone, and that's not direct-to-video.
That was an Edward Norton, failed prestige film.
Oh, I got it here. It's either Red Lights or Freelancers 2012. Freelancers was definitely direct-to-video because it's a 50-cent Forrest Whitaker, Robert De Niro vehicle.
You know, Robert De Niro is interesting because I actually feel like he kind of maintains dual residence in like the DTV and theatrical realms.
But once you're tainted, you get, and this is not negative. I'm not saying this negatively.
Okay.
I'm just saying that.
I got one for you. Bruce Willis.
Oh.
Perfect example because like I think maybe it was the last Die Hard movie, and people are going to say, okay, he can't, like he did the Wes Anderson movie, he did Glass. There are movies afterwards, but like Death Wish also. But let's face it, like Death Wish, I feel like that was an outlier. That was one that like bubbled to the top amidst a sea of direct-to-video schlock that came after like A Good Day to Die Hard.
You know what? I would agree with you. Oh, he does star in Red 2, though. And that was a theatrical film.
Yeah, maybe that was the one then. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would have been the one. Yeah.
Edge of Darkness with Mel Gibson.
Ooh, was that his last gasp? He had nothing after that?
I think The Beaver technically came after, but The Beaver is something else.
No, The Beaver was like, that's post-cancellation. Like, that one limped to theaters if it ever came out. Yeah, you're talking about more the idea of like a big, wide release. People look at this person, they consider him a star that opens theatrical films. I do feel, though, if you ask most people are Robert De Niro, they'd be like, I wonder if they'd be like, oh yeah, he's still a star, right? They just are not clocking that he's DTV now.
I think somebody like Robin Williams, like very decisively, like he had a decade of flops up to and including Old Dogs. And after Old Dogs, it was never the same.
God, Mel Gibson's filmography, Hot Seat, Agent Game, Panama, On the Line, Hunting Season, Boneyard.
I'm sure Mark Hansen has seen all these.
You know what? Mark Hansen of the Bay Street Video podcast, manager at Bay Street Video, a product manager, has said Gibson just doesn't get his motor running. Like, it doesn't have the same juice.
Interesting.
And
yeah,
you'd think that he would because he's such a twitchy, like, oh, this man has lost his mind. But supposedly it's kind of calmed down over the years. And he just doesn't have it anymore, which is very unfortunate.
You know, actually, I can understand that because I don't think, like, Gibson was obviously a huge star, but I actually don't think people are going to say Lethal Weapon and Mad Max, and fair enough. But like,
I think he was a huge star.
Well, he definitely was, but it's like I don't really care about him.
I cared about Mel Gibson when I was a kid, definitely. I saw What Women Want with my mother in theaters.
You know, I saw the Chinese remake of What Women Want with Andy Lau.
Yeah, I mean, not as fun because he didn't have that Gibson magic. Now, Al Pacino.
88 Minutes. You know, I read Al Pacino's autobiography recently, and he talks about how, like, you know, throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, he was making like $15 million a movie. He was making like so much money, and then all of a sudden the money stopped. He stopped getting those jobs because he kind of aged out of it. And so he went deep into debt, and he just started making all these shit like direct-to-video movies.
I'm looking here. Maybe there's the De Niro Al Pacino breaking point because they were both in Righteous Kill in 2008.
That's right.
You know that the Lonely Island guys, they've made Righteous Kill like the greeting. If you meet them out in public, they want you to tell them like Righteous Kill.
Righteous Kill has that great poster where it's just the two of them, and they're looking like, what was it they said on the Flophouse? It was like, yeah, that's right, we're in a movie. You want to see it?
They look like confused. They're like, yeah, we're here, I guess. Who directed? John Avnet, director of Fried Green Tomatoes in 88 Minutes and The Last Rodeo. I have seen. I think I looked into this. Is John Avnet the guy who? There was a guy that we were like shocked that like he is like basically the power behind like Justified and things like that. That like he was the showrunner of it. And let's see here. John Avnet is that guy. He directed 10 episodes of Justified. He came back for the reboot of Justified. He did like tons of pilots. And there he is doing The Last Rodeo, the Neil McDonough film, which you guys did on Michael and Us, right?
Yeah, and actually it's not that bad. I was stunned. Yeah.
Neil McDonough, he will not allow it to fall below a certain level, and he will not kiss any women on the lips. Now, the problem with this marathon is, sounds not fun. It sounds bad.
Yeah, maybe it's bad.
You know what I would love to do is like a Robert De Niro or Al Pacino thing where you put every movie they ever starred in a big hat and you have to pull it out. And whatever the movie is, you have to watch it. Only starring roles.
Oh, man. All right, let's do that. That should be our next marathon.
Oh.
We do five movies. We put all of Robert De Niro's starring roles in a hat. It like, hey, could be Taxi Driver, Or it could be the Alpha Dogs or whatever that fuck that movie was called. The Alto Knights.
Oh yeah. The thing about Al Pacino is he starred in a lot of DTV films. Robert De Niro really didn't star in that many DTV films, which is unfortunate. He's like a supporting character who showed up for a day. You don't have that. Oh, you could get like The Bagman, for example. Robert De Niro is in that John Cusack vehicle. He's third billed ahead of Crispin Glover, Dominic Purcell, and my favorite, Sticky Fingers. Do you know why they call him Sticky Fingers? Because he loves honey.
I love knowing that, like, there are so many actors who have been scene partners with Robert De Niro over the years, and one of them is Jax Taylor from Vanderpump Rules. The two of them shared the screen.